Dang. Peace. What's up? Welcome back. All the Secret House tenants, all the Secret House likers, subscribers, Patreons, all of you. Tremendous love and appreciation for all of you that are supporting us. It's the thing that this is my favorite thing to do right now. Of course, you guys know that I am mega. Right now I'm swollen eye mega. I got a little bit of a problem and shit. I can't open my eye like that. It looks like I got punched in the eye, but without the black. But also the black, you know what I mean? The black, brown, and the red. You guys know the mix. Philly Negro, Black Seminole Tribe represent. But yeah, man, today, first and foremost, Ight I've for Divine. This is a little different. I like to get in here. I used to like to get in here sometimes to try to do something. If you guys like hearing me talk about random things and kind of just talk, I could create more videos like this when me, Jet, and L Spade can I get together. I was thinking that perhaps maybe I could do album reviews by myself sometimes if you guys are interested in that. So, you know, like, comment, and do all those things. But man, I've actually tried to record this video 3 times now, and I just got done 7 minutes ago talking to myself for 20 minutes without actually hitting the record on my computer, which is something that's whack. something is fucked up. Like, you know, I got a lot of love for you guys and I don't mind doing this, but yeah, I've been having a little bit of difficult time, and time is always, you know what I mean, against us in a certain way. But man, today I'll put timestamps inside of the video to let you guys know what's going on. This part right here, this is the intro, and I want to let you guys know about a couple things that are coming up. But this video in particular is to share a conversation that I had with Alaska of the Mighty Adams fam crew, Alaska Adams. Recently, we did a review of the collaborative project that he put together with the producer Still Tip Dove, who is tremendous, and Alaska himself also tremendous. And in that project, you know, we did a secret house thing. We give our opinion. We delved into what we thought some of the themes were, and Alaska caught wind of it. He watched the video. He hit us up on Twitter, or I forget what it was, but we were in communication, and he was like, yo, if you guys want to talk about the album, I'll clear up some of the things that you guys, the misconceptions perhaps that you guys had about the album in terms of what we thought and what his intent was, as well as also some of the aspects of the creation and some of the deeper themes that he was getting into in the album. And for me, that's kind of a geek out moment, because as you guys know, you know, 40-year-old mega b-boy Omega Legs, you know, the graph writer, the MC, the producer, the West Coast hip hopper human being that I am. I wasn't on the East Coast, but I had a tremendous adoration, appreciation, and love for a lot of the East Coast cats that I never really got to sit with and rock with or have conversations with. My favorite MC for the last 25 years has been Aesop Rock, and Alaska Adams was right there with him, you know, in the Adams fam crew and Definitive Jukes. And despite, you know, my closeness and proximity to my other heroes like Micah 9 or Radio Inactive, Bus Driver, even at a time I was Radio Inactive's insurance agent, you know what I mean, to talk about the proximity, I never got to talk to those guys. So for me, being able to have a conversation with was really dope. And to be honest, I was a little bit apprehensive at first because, number one, I wasn't very happy necessarily with the way that the kind of overarching theme of our critique of his album. I thought that we kind of went in a little bit hard on some of the enlightened centric, kind of some of the more some of the themes that we talked about that album. I saw that one of the people was like, man, you know, I forget who the person was. They always in the comments, but they was like, maybe this one's not for me. And I was like, no, this one is definitely for you, even though we, you know, I felt like some of the themes on the album were reactionary, but talking to Alaska about it, he cleared a lot of those things up. So the link is in the bio for that. I want you guys to go back, even if you don't watch the review, I want you guys to go check out that album, because the talent is tremendous. The bars, the rapping, the perspective is tremendous. And while I do feel the album is kind of enhanced by knowing who Alaska is and his maybe I'll say like career trajectory or life trajectory, knowing that a little bit adds to the album. But even outside of that, it's just really phenomenal, really dope, well-crafted art, well-crafted hip-hop music, well-crafted independent underground shit that we like to review on this channel. So definitely check that out, man. He even clears up like the name, and on the conversation, in the conversation, we get into some other things that are not necessarily about the album, but it was kind of us getting to know each other, you know what I mean, and just building and talking as people a part of a, you know, a global worldwide community. And that said, I want to remind you guys that he is also one of the co-hosts on the Call Out Culture podcast, which is him, MC Curly Castro, and MC Zilla Rocca. All three of them are phenomenal artists, and they just happen to do a podcast. One of my favorite things that they do on their podcast is their Lineage of Greatness episodes. We talk about one that was upcoming, but is already out now. During our conversation, it was upcoming, but I haven't put this out for like 3 weeks because procrastination mega and shit. But he on those Lineage of Greatness episodes, they pick an artist that they have kind of, you know, a love and adoration for, and they do a deep dive. They talk about like why they're dope, what they influence, and how they were influenced by that artist. And the new episode is about Heavy D, and I think they got his cousin, if I'm correct, Grape Lover, on that shit. And if you don't know Heavy D, if you're a young cat that never heard Heavy D, man, that catalog is strong. That catalog is important. And without an artist like Heavy D, I don't know if we get other artists as early as we did. Man, shout out to Heavy D. Shout out to Call Out Culture. Go listen to all the Zilla Rocca shit. Go listen to the Curly Castro shit. Go listen to all the Alaska Adams shit. Go listen to the new joints. But yeah, that is what this video is primarily about. I'm gonna ramble and get off a little bit about some other shit too. Man, I was happy to meet Alaska. That fool is just amazing to me, bro. Like, I've loved his music, and I've appreciated him for a long time. We get into some shit. Like he was very personal. Like virtually every question I asked, he didn't duck dive or try to skirt around it. He was not even very political about it. Like, well, you know, I feel like he didn't give me the political answer. He gave me his real thoughts, and that's what I love about Call Out Culture podcast, about those three guys, and particularly about Alaska. But speaking of people that we talked to recently, a famous, you know, established, incredible artist, we reviewed CrashPrez and Def C, their album with producer What's the Time? I think, man, I'm fucking up. What is the time this might be in? I'm messing it up right now. I don't want. Knows the time. Jeez, what's the time? I am drinking, and I did just record for 17, 25, 27 minutes. But yeah, knows the time. But their new collaborative project is great. And one of the things that I kind of delved into a lot based upon their album rollout description was the immediacy about the album. And I wanted to know about what was the immediacy that they're talking about in the creation of the album versus kind of my perception of it. And he was CrashPrez and Def C. Def C reached out, said, yo, thank you. If you guys need anything, if you guys want to hear more thoughts on it, like, reach out. And maybe I could do like a Odd Cypher Divine with both of those guys, kind of like I did with the Alaska joint. If you guys are interested, let me know. I wouldn't mind talking to some of these artists, even though I'm a little bit apprehensive of doing the solo videos. But he reached out, CrashPrez tossed about, 500,000 words or whatever to give us a deeper insight into our thoughts on the album. And he wrote, and I'm gonna do a little quotes right now because I'm just gonna read his read the email that he sent us. If you have any other questions, let me know. Maybe I'll reach out to him. I can give more answers and whatnot. He said he wrote the album blurb. As he wrote in the album blurb, the immediacy speaks to the origins of DefPrez. Us, all three of them linking up over weekends, picking samples for beats, cutting songs right then and there. That's how they did the first two EPs, which were released later together as Sunday sessions. In the review, I stumbled over that a little bit. I didn't know about the Sunday session shit, but I got information. I put it down. I stumbled over it. But he says this album is started in similar fashion, but it ended up becoming something else, mostly because of COVID. He said, Safer's the oldest record that they kept, and that was recorded at Knows the Time crib before the lockdown. We ended up working on the bulk of the album in stop and start bursts as people figured out how to link and work during, the global pandemic, the COVID situation that we all lived through. He says, me and Def C recorded everything else at Classic Studios in Chicago. Shout out to Chicago. Knows the Time had a lot of the beats done and was sitting for a cool minute. He found the right folks to add post-production takes to certain things and kind of elevate it, take it up a notch. He said we credited the additional players as features. Matt did bass and synths on paper. Jamie did horns on paper and Deserve, and Dylan did drums on Deserve. I think I mentioned Jamie and Matt, but I didn't mention Dylan. I did say that the person on drums was killing, and that's Dylan. So shout out to Dylan. Phenomenal. The album was done about a year before it came out, and he says he hopes the context was useful. And again, you know, he appreciated us doing it. And one of the things that, you know, outside of just getting kind of, you know, we listen to all these artists, you know, we're fans of them just as you are. And I'm not an internet cat that, you know, hits a like on their Instagram pictures. I don't be on there. I don't communicate with them on Twitter. So it's significant to me when they reach out and we can have kind of a conversation. And one of the things he said that made me especially proud, that number one, that he appreciate that, but also what we do in the space as Secret House, was he says, it was very humbling to see some leftist black folks put in a thorough care and analysis in long form YouTube video reviews. And I'm not an academic. I'm a leftist black folk, you know, Philly Negro, Black Seminole Tribe, you know, Jess Black, L Spades Black. And, you know, I feel an obligation to champion black culture in today's day and age, especially the ones that come from the mud, like underground independent hip hop art. And I especially feel that it's important to sprinkle on my leftist critique of these things, because I don't see a lot of that. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't really see none of that in today's space. If it wasn't for there not being that there, I probably wouldn't do Secret House. But I do it for that, and to get kind of the love from CrashPrez off that, straight up and down, like it makes me, it just along with the likes and the comments and the subscribers and the patrons, it makes me feel like taking this forward. And even with my uncomfortable kind of ass doing the solo videos, if y'all want to see more of this, I'll put it down for y'all, because I feel like it's like a, for me, it's not a thing that's a burden. It's a thing that is a passion project and a thing I love. And if it's reaching people, like in the comments, you know, a lot of y'all let us in on the leftist critiques or whatever. Yeah, I'll do it more often. That's a form of praxis for me. You know, this type of music, even though all these artists are not leftist, a lot of these things are, you know, cogs in the revolutionary machinery. And so, yeah, man, CrashPrez, shout out. Def C, shout out. Knows the Time, shout out. Much love and respect. And we clocked in, we tuned in, we following y'all, and we supporting y'all. Put some money down on these artists that we review. That's the best way that you could kind of support these cats. Like, let the big artists, you know, get their money from the bozos. But the cats is really serious about this shit. You guys give us a little bit of money, and I'm sprinkling that money right back into the community of underground hip hop artists and shit. So once I get my money right and got enough money for that No Name Book Club poster, it's gonna be right there. It's just hard to ship to Japan right now. Shout out Tokyo, you know. I mean, yeah, word. But another thing that we're doing that I wanted to let y'all know about that's going to happen. Recently, we were reached out to by a podcast, a phenomenal podcast called The Sonic Cloth. The Sonic Cloth is a podcast that takes deep dives into artists' catalogs, and it, you know, some of these episodes will be like 3 hours long. I recently just listened to an Anticon project, which I was kind of jealous I wasn't on, because I was around a lot of those cats. Some of those fools I consider like acquaintances, friends, you know, I was there during the days, but they do deep dives. And he reached out to Secret House. He reached out to me and Jed and said, hey, I would like to do a deep dive about the great Billy Woods. So, you know, I'm right there. I was like, let's do it. Whatever you want to do, we could do it. And so he also said, like, yo, let's take a lot of time. Let's really get our thoughts together. We're going to do pretty much, I think it's like 10 albums, 10 Billy Wood albums, and talk about them and go deep into them and some of the themes and, you know, like all the, like anything you could talk about when it comes to that work. And you guys know how I do. I'm prepping. I'm prepping right now. I'm doing a lot of Billy Woods. Listen, go to the back catalog. That is going to be recorded actually over a month from now. We're gonna record that sometime in August. But as soon as it drops, I'm gonna hip y'all to it. I'm gonna put y'all on to it. But in the meantime, go check out his other work. He doesn't just do hip hop work. He does other genres. And to be honest with you, like, I like his podcast so much. I want him to invite me for everything, because there's so many incredible artists that give me 3 hours to talk about an artist, I'm gonna talk about it for 3 hours. So yeah, go check him out. Hit the like, subscribe on all his joints. Hit the automatic download so it helps the algorithm, help the numbers. You know what I mean? These are little things that we could do to elevate and to support people who care about this type of shit. Secondly, me and Jet have been sitting on our hands a little bit with the Shhh Not Book Club. We're going to do Big Just, Gafflin Whips, Plantation Rhymes, EP, album review, discussion, conversation. We're planning on getting into that with some real, like, I want it to be deeper. I want it to be a stronger critique towards the material conditions that were around and emerging, what that album grows out of, what it influences, and also what he was saying about the time and space that he was in. And also, he's just, Big Just is a phenomenal artist. Shout out Company Flow, shout out the Flynn Modulation Systems. We're going to get into that. So if you guys want to be a part of that, go listen to the album. If you cannot, it's hard to find online. It's not on streaming. If you need it, shoot me a message. I'll shoot you a message. I've got the ripped CD version of it on my computer still, and I'll send y'all a Google file, a Google Drive link to it so you can listen to it if you cannot find it online. But that's going to be a fun conversation, man. It gets into a lot of things. It gets into a lot of things about the time and space back then in 2001, 2002, about hip hop culture and independent music. And it also does some things that we like now that nobody was doing. This is a phenomenal album. So check that shit out. Pay attention. That's on its way. Me and Jet are also going to be reviewing the Love the Genius collaborative album with Green Lantern. That's dropping soon. And also the artist Buck65, who shares the namesake of this show, Secret House Against, he got a new album called Super Dope. And it's actually kind of super dope. Shout out to Nova Scotia and all these things. Shout out 12,000 hobos or 1,200 hobos, Sebutones, Buck65, Vertex, Man Overboard, Square. If you weren't there, maybe you don't feel it, but if you was there, you was like, damn. And I was there, so I'm like, damn. But I feel like I kind of been rambling for a long time. I don't know how much more I really got to say. I don't think I really do. I want to give a shout out to the Patreon gang again. MT, Idiot Doom Spiral, No Name, Wet Sticker, Robo Bo, B Girl Chi, who is my wife, Killer Furu. I don't know if that's Furu, like Japanese style, or Furu, Killer Furu, Drunk Monk, Ishmael Bennett, Lank God, Barun Chanda, Demi, Old Man Christian, M. Lamberg. Man, you guys are the best. You guys really, all of your hard-earned dollars is much appreciated by me, man. Like, you don't gotta spend it nowhere. You gotta spend your money on no YouTube videos. Like, who does? I don't have a Patreon for anybody that I support on YouTube. You know, I support some other podcasts on Patreon, Rev Left Radio, all these things. But yo, your money is appreciated. It's hard. Most of us broke out here, except for the idiots trying to jump in a cheap submersible and go see the Titanic. I'm not one to cry about that or say that's the chickens coming home to roost, but that clogged up my timeline a little bit more than the 750 people, the migrants, the immigrants, that their boat went off in the Mediterranean Sea and they haven't been found. You gonna ask me to kind of weigh this trolley problem if I care about a billionaire dying, go see the Titanic, or 750 people, including children? My news need a Brita filter. Read theory. Hit the like, subscribe, comment. Think about the Patreon, or don't. And also, seize the means. Looking at some of the notes that I have.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, and I've I've done full episodes of, we've done like full episodes of Call Out Culture where we forgot to hit record. So that's also like in the back of my mind as well. Like, you know, once you get into the conversation, if you don't hit it, you're like, oh shoot, we missed it.
Yeah, I know the vibes, man. Like, you know, I was doing a podcast out here in Tokyo for years, and we had Ali Shaheed Muhammad and Adrian Young in
Oh,
studio
wow.
with just a little bit of time to record, and I forgot to hit the record, so I missed like
Oh,
the first
no.
10 minutes. Yeah, but you know, they were cool, so we just
That's
kept
what's
it
up.
running, not pretending like nothing happened. But
That's
yeah,
what's up. Yeah.
that anxiety is always there when you're recording.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey,
You,
you know,
I think your
on
mic
the
is going out a little bit.
okay, maybe I should try to
Okay, you're
switch.
good now.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, all right. Um, I just wanted to say before we really get started, as you heard in the review, I've been a longtime fan, a longtime listener and supporter
Word.
of your music and some of your contemporaries, and I've been, you know, amongst that underground hip hop cloth for virtually my entire life. I imagine we're close to the same age, or probably a couple high school generations above me, but you know, I'm 40 years old, and
Okay.
for me, you know, I was graduating high school around the time that, you know, Canox dropped, and I
Word.
was already heavy into the independent scene back then. And it's a pleasure to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah, man, it's the honor's mine, man. I appreciate it. I really enjoy, you know, what y'all do and the way you talk about music and the passion that you bring to it. So,
Thanks, man.
you know, it's dope to see, like, it's weird, right? Like, because I got like a decade on you, basically. But it's weird to sort of have those conversations where it's like this thing that like seems like it was forever ago, like that people enjoyed it, you know, because it's like,
Right.
you know, you see that whole world like disappear in your life, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, it's like something that happened, and then you're like, oh, people actually enjoy it, and that feels good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, you know, a lot of the people in those communities that went on to do like different things. I know some cats went and
Word.
joined the military after being independent cats, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it seems like forever ago. I've been in Japan for 12 years, and
Wow.
that still shocks me all the time. I got out here on an accident, and I just stayed. So yeah, but
Wow,
yeah,
that's
man.
wild. Wait, where are you from originally?
I grew up in Southern California,
Okay.
Oceanside in Inglewood, California.
Mm-hmm.
But I moved to Hawaii with my dad, who's in the Marine Corps, when I was 15, and so I was kind of a part of the underground scene out there.
Okay.
You know, proletariats, cats like Staple Mouth and Omega 6 that were doing
Mm-hmm.
like double time, fast chopping, sing song style, kind of really inspired by probably Bone Thugs more than Freestyle
Word.
Fellowship when I think of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I grew up out there. I just got out here because I came to visit my parents who were living in Okinawa, and I was
Mm-hmm.
teaching a little breakdancing joint, and I met my wife,
Oh,
and we
wow.
just got married, decided to move to Tokyo.
That's dope.
And it's weird because, you know, I'm not a college graduate myself, and so out here, everybody that's a foreigner like me, or especially the Black community, they're all college educated, and I'm like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
grow up around that. You know, I was doing,
Yeah.
you know, I was homies was on house arrest, and you know what I mean? Like, it's real
Word.
different.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I still you know, have great fondness for all of the artists and the music that came out during that time, um, including yourself, including
Well,
yourself.
thank you, man.
And I was especially happy when I stumbled across Call Out Culture, because I'm not really that much of an internet head like that
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, and I didn't know what you were doing. I had no idea what you or Cryptic or anybody was doing outside of like El Producto and some of
Word.
the cats that went on to like larger stardom. And so to hear you on there, and for it to just be you, Zilla Rocca and Castro just talking shit, is about as close as you can get to feeling like a ghost. You feel like you in a room, you want to argue.
Word.
And you know, all of us kind of have that same similar temperament and same experience with the culture to a degree. And yeah, I love you guys. Even though I
That's
haven't
what's up,
listened,
man.
I still got you guys on download every time an episode drops to get those numbers up. You know what I mean?
That's what's up. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
word.
Yeah. It's one of the interesting things about like the podcast world, right? Because it's like as you get older, like I'm sure, you know, you see this too, like you have less of those conversations that you used to have every day, right? So like you're hearing those conversations and kind of like living vicariously through them. Because I know like when I listen to Super Duty Tough Work, Like they'll talk about something like, that's not how it happened, man. Like I was there, I remember that. Or, it's like sort of those things like you have those conversations with
Yeah,
yourself, like while you're walking your dog or something.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and I feel like that's heavily a part of culture too. Like arguing about lists and arguing about hip hop is probably like the fifth or
Mhm.
sixth or maybe 17th element of it. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's especially weird when you talk about history, because all of our perceptions of it are very different, and what we thought about it. And to kind of move on towards the album, one of the reasons that I really enjoyed it is because I felt like all of that art that you were doing, like it's good, it stands on its own, but it's very much elevated by knowing who you are kind of as an
Mm.
artist and kind of like what you did. And that might have been it to me. It was kind of like almost like I don't want to say biographical, but in a sense it kind of was biographical. And I was like, man, I had like I assume as much, like some of the things you were saying on the vapors. I assume as
Yeah.
much, but yeah, man. But before we get into kind of the details of the album, though, how's the reception of it been? Have people been feeling it and
Yeah.
telling?
I mean, we kind of get in our bubbles. So from what I've seen, people are feeling it. Like the reception's good. We've, had a lot of people support it. We're almost out of the vinyl, which is cool. I haven't put out vinyl since the first Hangar 18 record, so that's like an interesting experience. But yeah, the reception's been good. Like it's a weird record because Dove and I have been talking about doing a record for years, and like last summer, things just kind of lined up to where we both had the time, and like we knocked it out quick, like in like 8 weeks.
Oh, word. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it
like
was like we literally did it over the summer. Like I was traveling back and forth to the city for work a couple days a week, because we had been like remote and then we start coming back in. And I was just writing it on the train. So like I
okay.
would, write a couple songs, show up, record, he'd hit me with some beats, I'd go home, do it again, and then like the next week record a couple more. Like we really just knocked it out quickly. So it was weird. Like I was in the process of applying for a PhD program. So I kind of also had this deadline hanging over my head that if I got into this program, I wouldn't be able to do music for a little while. Like I would have to dedicate myself to that. So I was really like working on a lot of music and really sort of driven. Like I completed like 4 albums over the last year. So and I wanted to get like 8 done, but like I just ended up being like burnt out at a certain point. You just can't do that much. But I didn't get into the program, so now I have more time to do things, and I have
Okay.
4 albums done.
Hey, right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was like in that process of like having this sword dangling over my head that I needed to get out the things that I wanted to get out, and I think it was with the Dove record. It was like when you're doing music, you get to this point where what you were doing, you can continue to do that, but it becomes boring to you.
Cool.
So like your style, your content, what the things you're talking about evolves a little bit to make it interesting. And like Dove was one of those inflection points where like the things that I was doing, I was just kind of like tired of it. Like it was like a very punk rock perspective, I think, for a lot of it. Like it was like sort of like sticking your finger in everybody's wounds.
Word.
So like I wanted to get a little more introspective and personal. And like, I kind of like hit the half century mark. So it's like you start realizing like at this point, I'm closer to being dead than I am to being young. So you start like having those points of view of like looking back on the way you were and sort of the appreciation. And I think like, both like, oh my God, I was an idiot, but
Yeah.
I was also like, this was cool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Also, we were dope. Yeah, yeah. I feel
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, you don't got like a Wikipedia page, and I haven't been following your music for a long time just because I kind of was maybe outside of the circles that were
Mhm.
sharing it. I hadn't heard a new project from you since probably Hangar 18, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And have you released several albums since then? Because I just am not
I,
privy to them.
I think I released like 8 records. Some
Oh,
of
no
them like,
shit.
yeah, I dropped like, so when Hangar, like Def Jokes went under and Hangar 18 recorded our last record and broke up, I was real disillusioned because we we had sort of like changed ourselves. Like we had a version of like the Sweep the Leg record that we really loved and we were proud of. And it just got like delayed, you know, like as things will with a label, like, you know, we were like probably like 5 releases away from us. So like that could be 2 years in the label world.
They gotta
And
put the album out and shit, right?
exactly, yeah, yeah. You know,
Right.
like Cages Depart for me is like scheduled before we are. So during that time, like you're touring, you're playing with different acts, you're kind of seeing things that work in a live show. And you're like, all right, we need to incorporate this into the record. And we started like chasing, almost like chasing clicks before you were chasing clicks. So like we compromised the vision of the record and it just like, it ended up kind of like flopping. Like not even like commercially, because I don't care about sales, but like the impact, like people just were like, meh.
I love that shit. I actually really like that record a lot. Yeah.
I like part of it, but there's like a part of it where I'm like, I understand like the sort of like, oh, this isn't that good.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably more critical of your art than some of your fans
Yeah.
are, I imagine, and especially looking back at it from so many years and how you've progressed as a person and stylistically. When did because you know, I'm used to you kind of not necessarily always doing double time, but the Hangar 18 record, you're rapping in a different style and approach than you are on this record. When did the kind of style switch start happening?
I think it's just been an evolution that's gone on over the years. Sorry, my headphone just like somehow disconnected and connected to my phone. Or I don't know what the fuck just happened. I'm sorry. Oh, that's weird. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, it was weird. Like I tapped it and like it started playing my Spotify. So sorry, I apologize for that. It just threw me for a second. Yeah, it's been a slow evolution. Like, you know, I mean, that was the last Hangar 18 album was almost 15 years ago.
Oh, that's crazy to think about, but you're right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think like, and I took some time off in between. Like, I had a daughter. I wasn't very healthy, like towards the end of Hangar 18. So I had to, you know, get myself together when I had like a kid coming in the world. So I stepped away from everything for a while. And it just gave me time to like sort of rethink more what I wanted to do. And I think a lot of like the fast and double time stuff, like a lot of it was like hiding that we didn't really have anything interesting to say a lot of the times. Right. So, I mean, I'm not saying that for everybody. I'm saying specifically for us, at least for me, right?
Majority. Yeah, it's a big majority of cats. Even me. But
you know, but it's like, you're like, all right, I'll replace style with substance. So I think as I've progressed and gotten older, I have things I want to like discuss. Cause a lot of it's like, I don't do it anymore to like be famous. Like I'm never going to tour again. I probably will never do another show again. I don't really care about that. Yeah. Like I haven't done a show since 2009 or 2010. Yeah. Like I don't get joy out of that anymore. What's that?
You're still in New York, yeah?
Yeah. I'm still in Brooklyn.
Man. You don't feel like ever getting on a stage with the homies? Interesting.
No, because the homies aren't on the stage anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and that was part of the joy of it. It's kind of like also why I don't drink anymore that much. Like I used to enjoy drinking because I was hanging out with my friends drinking. Now, if I go out and drinking, like most of my friends either moved away, some of them have passed, you know, some of them don't go out anymore or aren't involved in anything. So it's like, you know,
I feel that.
Like, yeah, I don't really like, I would rather cipher with some people than do a show.
Sure.
Which is kind of like come full circle, but yeah, so like I just do it more like to understand myself and the world around me.
That was one of the things that I first noticed on the album, because I heard it's not coming to me right now, but I heard a feature, maybe it was on a Def C album, and I was like, oh, Alaska's getting off a little bit different. Like he's very like it seemed much more thoughtful and put together in terms of just the content and the substance. And when I first turned on this album, part of me was expecting a little bit of the tinge of, you know, Adams, like kind of raw, all over the place, kind of semantic rambling. You know what I mean? Just like getting dope off with styles. But every single track is, you know, full of substance, and that was kind of the joy of me to kind of pick it apart the way that we did, because I have to admit, I don't I'm not a big fan of reviews. I'm not a big fan of
Mhm.
reviews. I don't really read them, and the way that we kind of conduct the way that we do our reviews, a part of me also wants to take art as seriously as it takes
Mhm.
itself. And because of that, I felt like I walked away from your review feeling a little bit upset because I kind of felt like we leaned too much into a part of like this reactionary tangent that we went on. And
Yeah.
on subsequent listens, I was like, well, there's part of it that's there like that, but it's also, you know how it is when you're talking with friends. Like we don't share
Mhm.
notes, we don't do anything. Sometimes something comes up and you spend 5 minutes talking about wrestlers instead of what you're
Yeah.
supposed to talk about. And so we did kind of lean into that. And I think that Jet probably feels the same way as I do. But man, the things that you're saying is very mature, it's thoughtful, and it's witty as shit too. And I kind of
Thank
like
you.
that old, I do, fuck around with the curmudgeon personality types. And all of my favorite New Yorker homies that I've ever met have this kind of honest asshole personality type that I feel is like a really genuine, authentic thing that I would prefer to have over somebody kind of masking their thoughts or feelings,
Word.
or some fake motivational bullshit, like, hey, just be happy about it. Like, and I did get a lot of substance out the album. And I do want to kind of talk about some tracks in particular, but
Sure.
I also wanted to know kind of like what do you think as an artist? What do you think about album reviews? Do you like pay them mind? Do you watch reviews of, your homies' albums and things of that nature, or is it just kind of, beyond you and past you?
I care more about where they're coming from than anything. Like I want to hear reviews from people that are of the culture, like people whose opinions, like if I had a conversation with them about a record, like I would be able to like respect their point of view. Right. So that's what I like. Like I like you guys. I like Cabbages. Are you familiar with Cabbages? Like Gary
No,
Suarez. He's got
no.
you should check it out. He's got a really dope newsletter that he puts out like twice a week. He's a journalist out of Queens. And he's always talking about hip hop. Um, and he does really dope reviews. He does like a lot of good stuff to like really sort of um share the culture with people at
Okay.
the level of the culture.
Word,
So like
word.
I like stuff like that. Like I don't care about like somebody that
Anthony
was
Fantano and
never,
shit.
yeah, like you weren't out and about during like the shows. You never went to any of this stuff when it was happening. So like you don't know. You weren't around until like Pitchfork came around. Like I don't care
Right,
about you,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate like they help get people clicks and they get people attention, but I don't care what your opinion is at that point. So like those are the things I check out because I like to have those conversations. Like if when we came up, there wasn't an internet. So we had those conversations with our friends. Like that's how we had, that's how sometimes friendships were made. Like some of my best friends are people that I met and I was looking through their tape collection and they had the first Jizza record. And they're the only other person I knew that had the first Jizza record. You know what I mean? And not even
Yeah.
Liquid Swords, like Words from the Genius.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
so it's like those are the people that you could talk about it with. So to me, like that matters more than anything.
And that's one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to start the channel, because I was just finding that, the cats that I watch, and I respect guys like Dead End Hip Hop. I like those
Oh
guys.
man, yeah, those guys are
You know,
great. Mike's the homie.
Mike is dope, and I like those guys. And in more recent years, they've kind of touched more of the pop cultural aspect of hip
Mhm.
hop and stuff. And I understand why they do it, but I kind of felt like there was just like everybody that's talking about this type of music, it's like some reaction video, or it's not talked about at all. And I was like, man, I hate to be the talking head, but I mean, I might as well. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well inject like the history that I know about it, and
Mhm.
also kind of my political standpoints on things to
Yeah.
tie it into the material world. And so far we've been having success with it. I've been quite happy, and actually surprised. Like we just started a Patreon, and one of our Patreons is No Name, and she's
Nice.
she's dope,
She's
and
great. I
she
love
just
No Name.
supported us. She's a leftist as well, a socialist, and I
Mhm.
think that's kind of why she got with our album. It's just that, me, being an artist at one point in my life, and also rocking and knowing so many and having relationships with some of my heroes, even it I'm a little bit embarrassed about, like whenever my friends give me an album, the homies is like, yo, check out my new album. I'm like, oh, that's dope. And I would like to say that I'm honest with them, but a lot of
Mhm.
times you hold back the honest critique of like, yeah, that don't really work, because you don't want to sour your friends, or
Yeah.
and it kind of makes me feel a little bit unnerved when Def C shows up and he's like, yo, thanks for the review. And I'm just like,
Word.
ah, like I want to highlight how dope you are, but like I also am just an idiot like the rest of us, and I might say some nonsense, So
Yeah.
uh,
But I think if somebody's honest, they like people to have a thoughtful conversation, right? Because I think when you're an artist, and it's not something you necessarily know when you're young, like, but at a certain point, you realize like once you put the record out, it's no longer yours. Like you have no more control of the conversation that happens around your record,
yeah,
right? So it's like you have to let it go. Like I don't even listen to records the second I drop them. Like I never listen to the records again after that. And not because I don't like them or anything. It's just I'm done with it at that point. Like I've lived with it for a long time, and like I no longer have control over it, so I have to let it go. And like that's kind of how I do that.
word.
So, but it's cool like to hear people talking about it, because it means that like, especially like when it's a good conversation like y'all do, because it means that it resonated on some
Yeah.
level, right? Like one of the things with that Hangar 18 record I was telling you about, like it would have been great if everybody loved it. It also would have been really cool if people passionately hated it. But when everybody was like, oh, it came out, that's
Yeah,
where you're like, damn, I really fucked up.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. I've just, I've basically done all the
Hmm.
elements throughout my life in rap, but I never had any intention of being an artist, because I myself, I think I was a bit sensitive. I
Hmm.
think that I wouldn't handle criticism well. So if somebody tells me my tape is whack, my first response as a young man is kind of like, fuck you then.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would handle that shit well. Like I even get mad at internet comments, and that's why I don't scroll the timelines and I don't post on,
Yeah.
like I want to argue with people. So but I was pleasantly surprised to see you clock in and say what's up, and notice the review. And I know for certain that some of our listeners were really rocking with it. A couple people hit
That's
me
what's
up,
up.
and my thing was like, yo, this is really dope. And I would be like, I'm curious about that era, because a lot of these, like, our demographic for our listeners on the channel is like, they're like 23-year-olds, they're
Yeah.
23 to like 30. And it's like, man, you don't know shit. You know what I mean? Like
No, yeah.
you weren't around for any of that. And I kind of feel that, especially the generation that you kind of flourished and came into as an artist, that to me, that is a really big divergence within not only hip hop culture but in all media. After
Mhm.
the Telecommunications Act and the way that hip hop was going on the radio, with conglomerates buying everything up and having the gatekeepers that we used to have, like a
Mhm.
lot of cats was like, yo, fuck all that bling shit, fuck the fashion show, let's get out of the jiggy era. And we went underground. And in a
Yeah.
way, I felt like I was like my generation. I graduated in 2001. I almost feel like I'm the last generation of the four element kind of b-boys. And
Yeah.
I saw that there was a point where it's like you be somewhere and somebody be like, yo, what up? Like, are you a b-boy? Or they recognize you as a hip-hop human being.
Oh yeah.
And then it got to the
Just by how
point
you
where it's like,
stand.
yeah, and
You know what I mean? Yeah.
it's like, yeah, and you exchange a tape, and then you get, some other underground cats, and you build friends. And I've got lifelong friends like that. And
Yep.
at a certain point, it became like, with MP3s were like a major benefit, and kind of the downfall of the independent scene in a way, because even though it introduced a lot of people to the culture, it kind of made it like fandom became a part of the culture, where we're of the participatory part of hip hop. Like,
Yeah.
I used to go to functions, and it's like everybody there was a hip hop person, unless they were like a girlfriend, and even then they were down. And
Yeah.
then I remember when Def Jux blew up, I would have guys like college kids, frat boy level dudes come up to me and be like, "Oh, bro, you listen to hip hop?" It's like, "Yeah, I love, Sage Francis and Definitive Jux." And it was just like, yo, I'm glad that you like them because they're really dope, but also like,
Yeah.
you fans are fucking absurd to me. Yeah, and
Yeah, we talk about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, I'm done with my rant. I'm just placing it down. It's weird to think about how hip hop is kind of, there's a fandom now. I
Yeah,
mean, there's always been
yeah,
a fandom, but the participatory aspect of it is different now.
yeah. I mean, it's 50 years old now, right?
Yeah,
Close to that.
yeah.
Yeah. So
It might be 51. Yeah,
it's the establishment at this point,
that's right. Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. It's like it's weird. Like I see a lot of my friends that are still participating, and there still is like that underground. Like there's always that underground of people who are like, I think when one of the things I learned was like, if you want something to exist, you have to create it yourself.
yeah.
Right. Like, I still have friends that are like really bitter that like they didn't blow up. And I'm like, you made weirdo music. Like we made weirdo music, you know what I mean? It's like music for weirdos. And there's not that many of them. And if you don't expand and travel everywhere to get that to all the weirdos in all the little towns, you're not gonna blow up. You can't blame Puff Daddy for that. You have to blame yourself for that. Like you didn't do it.
Yeah. It's
And you can
especially
blame
weird
Puffy
when,
for a lot.
yeah, yeah, he's got enough on his plate. He's got
Yeah,
enough blame
he's not
around.
responsible for
Yeah.
your failures.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely know some. I've definitely got some jaded homies who are like, yo, they bit
Yeah.
my style, and it's like, yeah, well, that's
Oh
culture,
yeah.
man. That's the way that all American, Western culture plays out,
Yep.
and it's dope to see now. I kind of feel like we're in a new golden age of underground, independent type of hip hop music. There's
Yeah,
so
I
many
agree.
cats. Like when you see a guy like Billy Woods, it's just like I would have I would be holding him up to the highest level even back in the day. But now you got kids that are like, yo, like I don't know shit
Yeah.
about hip hop, but this guy speaks to me. Open Mike Eagle had a show on fucking Comedy Central. That's
That's what I'm saying.
crazy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
man.
those dudes are doing like, and it's all self-made,
Yeah.
right? It's, not like on some, like I'm a made man, but to an extent it is like, like they have people that help them obviously, but like nobody was searching for them.
Yeah.
They were like, all right, I have something special. I'm going to make this and I'll keep going wherever it takes me. And
Yeah.
that's kind of dope.
I do love to see the success, man. I love to see like
Yeah.
there's so many cats out now. It's like I feel like I've been listening to dope hip hop every year of my life. It's never been whack, and I've never come out of my mouth saying hip hop is dead because I always knew where it was. Most people just forgot, they don't know where it went. But yeah, it's been dope ever
Yeah.
since. And you and Castro and Zilla Rocca and even Jesse the Tree. We just reviewed the album
Yeah.
with Andrew. I mean, like
Oh, that's a
these.
good record.
Oh man, it's a really, that's a summer record. That's a really nice vibey
Yeah.
record. I quite enjoy it. We'll have that review up soon. But man, like everybody's like right now, I feel like man, it's really kind of dope right now.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be around for it. But
And know what's really dope about it? Like, it's not like sort of pigeonholed into like one conversation point. Right. It's like, it's so many different perspectives coming together. Like, even like in like the heyday of the underground, it was still like, this is real hip hop.
yeah,
Like that was the number one talking point around it. Like, that's not there anymore. Cause it's like, either or and having something like this is real hip hop is so reductive because, then you're saying like 3 6 Mafia isn't real hip hop. You know what I mean? Like to me, or you're saying like Swisher House wasn't real hip hop. That's real hip hop. It's just a different take and a different perspective. And you have to like appreciate all of that. To me, like you have to appreciate all of like the real dope shit from everywhere, because that's what's defined by their culture. And if you say like we're the only real thing, you're like reducing their culture to less than.
that's right. That's
You
right.
know?
Yeah, I used to really hate on Master P and Puff Daddy when I was
Yeah.
well, at least Master P in high school. But when you look back on what he did for people in his community and his artists, and
Yep.
as an independent artist, he's really kind of like maybe he deserves to be on the independent hip hop Mount Rushmore because he was
Yeah.
just phenomenal. You know,
It's
like
the most important independent label in the history of independent labels, except for maybe like Motown. But
yeah.
I don't like if he looked like Jack White, we would be
Oh,
praising him as like the most brilliant entrepreneur in the fucking world.
yeah, you're damn right. And I'm so glad that that real the keep it real hip hop era is kind of a bygone era and
Yeah.
past. And I'm glad that the backpacker era is past. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's an easier conversation to have these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still feel a bit embarrassed when I tell people that I work within like hip hop culture and shit, just because the perception of it is like, oh yeah, yo, mega, you know, like I'm a cultural ambassador in my city. And when I
Mhm.
go and schmooze and rub elbows with people making a lot more money than me, they're like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, a variety of things, and you know, hip
Yeah.
hop culture organizing, and they're like, oh, hip hop. Oh, and it's not like I would feel better if they were like the Beastie Boys, but I know they're thinking like, oh, like Drake. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, I still want to draw the lines of distinction, but you know, it doesn't mean as much to me anymore.
Yeah.
No word. But let's talk about a little bit. Well, wait, actually, one more question that Jet
Okay.
had for you, and then I'd like to talk about some of the songs on the
Sure. Yeah.
album.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jet wants to know how has your position as a content creator with call out culture influenced your process as a musician, if any?
Um, I don't think it has actually, like, because I was a musician first. And yeah, I think because I'm with musicians when we do it, like our guiding principle is like we're just gonna talk about the shit that we care about. Like, and if we don't like something, we're gonna say it. And we're gonna like, be like defend it to the death if we have to. Like, so you hear those arguments on the show sometimes, and it's like people get pissed at me. Like when people get pissed at Castro. Like Castro and I were like, we don't like Cormega, and people got pissed at us. And
I
Zilla,
was
like,
mad at y'all.
yeah, but it's like
Get it?
we're all grown ass people, man. It's like we can have opinions, and it doesn't do anything to like to me. My point of view is like if me not liking something makes you not like something, you never really liked it, right? So that's kind of the way I look at it. Like nobody's gonna make me like something that I don't like just by like yelling at me or like So,
I
but
gotta.
yeah, so I guess I keep them very separate. Like I said, when I make music, I make music for myself. Like that's the audience I'm making it for, because it's like it's sort of like my therapy. It's like how I figure out like what's going on in my head, the sort of emotions that I'm dealing with, like whatever that is. It's like that's how I keep my sanity. Like I know like I seem like a curmudgeon on the records, but I do that, like I leave that on the records. So like I could come out and just be like, if I see a neighbor that needs help, I'm gonna help my neighbor. Or if I see like, my kid's struggling with homework, I could work on her and still be like, man, what's wrong with you? Like, so like it's sort of like that therapy. And I think call out culture is a similar thing, but it's also like just like what we're doing. It's like an opportunity to have the conversations that you used to have about the thing that you love.
One of my favorite things that y'all do is the lineage of greatness joints. Like I
Yeah,
love when you guys focus on an artist and just really highlight it. It shows your knowledge of styles and their history and why they're great. And I always feel like we need to champion the people in the culture that aren't necessarily getting those props. Like
yeah,
it shouldn't take a 10-minute freestyle from Black Thought for people to realize he should have been on your top 10 list, 10 years before that. So
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
word.
We're doing a
If he
really
was
cool
listening, he
one.
would have heard it. Yeah, if he
Yeah,
was listening, he would
exactly.
have heard it.
We have a real cool lineage of greatness coming up that I'm really excited about, because this person does not get nearly the props that they deserve. We're gonna
Okay.
do Heavy D.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
with it.
like
Yeah,
Heavy
okay.
Heavy D deserves like all the
Yeah.
props in the world, and he just does not get them.
Oh, I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing that one because I got
Yeah,
mad love for Heavy D. Yeah,
word.
I got
Yeah,
nothing but love for him.
you
Yeah,
know what I
but
mean? There you go.
yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, you don't have a Drake. I mean, I won't get into. I'll let y'all rock with the Heavy D conversation. But yeah. If I could, one thing I want to say is that the person I disagree with most and want to argue with most on call out culture is definitely Castro.
Yeah.
But word, he got a, you know, he hard headed, bro. He hard
Yeah.
headed. He got a
Hey.
strong will, and I love
Yeah.
him for it. But also, you know, that's why I like y'all, because I feel like, oh, if we was kicking it, we would just be kicking it. Like, yo,
Yeah.
it's real people. We're real people. So,
That's what's up. Yeah.
you know, I didn't take a lot of notes on the record outside of the times I listened to it. I have listened to it a few times since we did the review, and a couple of tracks have stayed on rotation for me. So I don't
That's what's
have
up.
like a track by track type of approach here. Just a few things that I wanted to kind of touch on and ask questions about, and then I wanted to let you kind of voice your thoughts on our opinion on it, if you had any in particular that stood out to you as being kind of what's the term I'm looking for? Maybe we misconstrued your intention, so to speak.
Cool. Yeah,
but one of my favorite tracks on the album is The Vapors, and of course, you know, judging by our conversation that we just had, for me, I just really, that's when, you know, it's the second track on the album. As soon as it comes on, I'm like, oh, okay, you know, I know Alaska, and it's interesting to hear you kind of unpack those things and think about the past experience and the life that you were living during, you know, the heyday of you know, underground hip hop culture kind of emerging into bigger markets and such. What are you, do you have anything to say about that track in particular?
I do. And
like,
actually, that was one of the ones that I wanted to talk about too. So we can kill two birds with one stone there.
Yeah.
So like that track was really written from, it's a track that like sort of talks about the 15 years or so since Def Jux, like the experience of going from, like even before that, really, like, you know, about my journey in hip hop, right? Like, you know, it starts off where like we're doing shows, like we're just getting to know people, we're making friends. And then once things like start, like people start getting record deals, putting out music, like everybody becomes very territorial. And those friendships are no longer the thing that drives you in the industry. Now it's like protecting your turf, right? Like, and this wasn't a realization I had at the time. Like, this was something that happened years later when I was like, I started going to like therapy, right? And I started talking with the person, and I was like, I don't feel like I have a community anymore. And he was like, well, what happened? And I was like, you know, I don't know. Like, I just like lost track of everybody. He's like, why don't you try to pull everybody together? So I reached out to a bunch of friends from like, there's a place called the New Eureka Poets Cafe. And that was like the sort of like epicenter for the underground scene. So it's like where like, you know, Adam's family would be there. Stronghold was there. For those that don't know Stronghold, that's like Lifelong, Poison Pen, like is that whole clique. Yeah, Sea Rays. You know, and like there was like Pumpkinhead's crew was there. They were called the Plague. There was like all these different crews there, right? Like the homie Pays Infinite, who's like a crazy beat maker now. We Be Foolish, so like Yeshua and Sire and all those dudes were there. So I reached out to them. I was like, yo, let's catch up. Like, you know, because you start connecting over social media. I was like, let's catch up. Let's go to this bar, have a couple beers, and we all hung out. And like realizing that all that time was lost because of like bullshit and like protecting our turf. And the most important thing of what we were doing was those friendships, right? Like the most fun that I think any of us had making music was doing all that shit, like hanging out, like getting to know each other, like creating with each other. So it sort of like kind of takes that approach, like, and that's like kind of what the, like, there's like, I think I talk about it, like how we became protective of our station, like things like that. And in the hook, it's like, it's sort of talking about all that, like all these things, like we thought that we would be saviors and it's not going to save us. Like not meaning it's not going to save the world. Like it's literally not going to save us. Like the thing that we think is going to like hip hop's going to save us, like we're going to be great. And it's like, it's actually destroying us. Like the way that we're approaching it right now is destroying us.
That's different than the way I took it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was saying. Like, cause I think like there was like, it was like sort of like, oh, he's being a curmudgeon. Like he feels like he's like kind of disgruntled, and it wasn't being disgruntled. It was like a realization. And that, so the second verse is like, you know, everything's packed away, and it was like, there was a period where it was like, there was shame around it. It was like, you know, like, oh man, like all these things, like we failed, like we weren't good enough. And then it was realizing like, no, we actually had a really cool experience. Like, and the most important, like the last line is like, and not the last line, but like towards the end, it's like now when I reflect, it's like the people that I met and had connections with, like that's the most important thing. And so
Oh,
like that's sort of what that song is about.
okay. Well, for me, who was younger at the time and really gung ho for hip hop culture and I don't want to say conscious rap or anything like that, but I definitely was on the front lines of being like hip hop is a legitimate art form
Yeah.
and it impacts lives and it's also radical and it's also political and it's also
Mhm.
so important. I had the idea that like, yeah, maybe through hip hop we can kind of, because I'm a former 5%er, my father was,
Mhm.
and that's why I'm mega. And so I was like, yeah, we can get people, we can, you know what I mean? We can build a movement and we can really change the world, like they shot Mumia, like, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
so when I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, I had the same sensation that we can change the world. But as I was listening to the track, I got the sensation that you didn't look back on those times fondly because of maybe we were too there was too many stars in our eyes, like we thought we
Mhm.
could do something, but of course it didn't turn out that way. So now it's just like kind of like, damn, like we thought we were going to do something dope but we didn't. And to me, all of that shit is still of tremendous importance. You talk about the New Yorican Cafe, like guys like Mike Ladd and
Oh
all
yeah.
of that kind of radical art to me is still a part of the gears of counterculture and changing the world
Yeah.
and yeah. So that you know I think maybe one thing that kind of drove into my head is because throughout the album you're kind of like, I was a little bit jaded or I feel a little cynical.
Yeah.
And so when I'm getting those things, I'm painting a kind of like a not a pessimistic glaze, but one that just didn't look back as fondly as maybe I thought it deserved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's in there though, because for a long time I felt that way. Like I did look at it like in a jaded and disappointed manner. And it was like an evolution of thought, like as opposed to, you know, always like looking at it through rose colored lenses. It had to like, it took me a while to appreciate like what a unique and wonderful thing it was. And now like, you know, I do appreciate that more than anything. Like that's the most important thing to me. Like that's what I always try to capture when I'm doing stuff. Like I try to capture the joy of it more than anything else. Like to me, like the worst part of the music business is the business, you know,
No
like,
doubt. No
and
doubt.
those are the things that kind of ruin it.
Do you think that a lot of those friendships, the way that they kind of ended up, had more to do with people being concerned about like the monetary aspect of it, or being more concerned about that kind of philosophical, I'm the dopest hip hop person, and maybe they're infringing on my, space that they might outshine me?
I think it's a bit of both, right? Because when you're making art and it also becomes your source of income and your livelihood, you have to be protective of that in some way, right? So I think it's all status driven in one way or another, right? Like I'm the dopest, like I don't like somebody getting more props than me impacts my status like within the industry, my status within the fan base, within my income bracket, all of that. Like so there's it's no longer about a community when you start looking at it from a status perspective. It becomes about the individual. And I think that's where it gets kind of lost. You know, and
Do
that and
you
that's a
still
delicate balance in any aspect of life, I think. But
Indeed. Yeah, I was going to, as a Marxist, I'm going to always tie it back into some type of economic bullshit.
mhm.
But so I don't want to delve in too much into your personal life, but do you still have
Mhm.
relationships with like El Producto and a lot of like Vordol? I know that there was problems with like Vast and after Kamud passed away and
Yeah.
there's internet rumblings and I'm more of a West Coast hip hop guy, so I know a lot of
Yeah.
guys on the West and I don't have friendships developed with a lot of my East Coast heroes. but you know, there's like rumblings, and I'm always just curious about this El Producto character, because you know, he's really big now. He's really big
Yeah,
now.
he's
I don't
huge.
see the homies
Yeah.
on his albums, you know?
Well, I think a lot of the homies burnt bridges with him. Like, you know, I don't want to get into like the full politics, but
Yeah.
you know, when the label started going down, I think he took a lot of like the heat for it, and people, you know, kind of took out their frustrations on him, which was kind of unfair to me. Um, you know, and I did it too. So like, I'm not trying to say that I'm innocent, but so I think like to that extent, I don't think he, you know, why would he have certain people on their records? When they cut all ties to him when things were going bad, right? They were fine hanging out with him when things were good, and you know, riding with him then. Like, you kind of see who your real people are, because he still has a lot of the people that he was with around him. They're just not necessarily artists, but like the same friends. You know, a lot of people that play on the record are people that were playing with him back then. So it's the friendships, I think, that stayed. So there was you know, people that were there for the purposes of the label, and then the people that were there for friends. As far as like my relationship with Elle, I still talk to Elle a couple times a year. We have very different lives right now. You know, like, I mean, I pretty much just like stay home, hang out with my family. I go out. Like that night I told you about where we caught up with like all the friends. We turned it into a quarterly event, like where it's like there's a bunch of dudes do beats now. So like, it's a live beat show. We have open mics, and we all just get up and rap there. Like, so that's the type of show I'll do. If you want to see me rhyming, you'll see me freestyling over like the homie pays his beats.
That's what's up.
But like, so that's sort of the world that I'm in. He's in a different world, you know, like you know, we keep talking about getting up. It's just, there hasn't been a time. I know him and Cryptic are still tight. I'm still tight with Cryptic. I see Cryptic all the time. He's the only dude out of Adams that I see anymore. Wind and Breeze moved out west, so you know, we talk a lot. Paul, he's in Wisconsin, so if he comes to New York, I'll see him. But otherwise, it's just like texting and phone calls. Vast, I have no communications with. Same with Vortal. It's for different reasons than Vast. Like, Vast is by choice. Vortal is that, you know, he's dealing with situations where he needs, you know, to sort of take care of himself. And yeah, you know, but there's definitely like connections with some of the people. Like, I don't, you know, the people that I was friends with, I'm still friends with. The people that I knew through like the label and stuff, I'm not. If I see them, it's cool, but you know, yeah.
I went on that tangent just as my curiosity as a fan.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the Adams fans are still homies. You know, you hope that, you know, the when it breaks up, you know, the Jacksons are still friendly at the end of the day. So yeah, that's just my fandom leaking out. But yeah, man, that's really dope, and I'm glad to hear that you guys got that event going. That actually sounds dope. I would love to. I mean, Yeshua and Saya, man, come on, like that. I mean,
well, it's mostly just Yesh. Saya doesn't come around. Yesh and like Ken Boogaloo.
Okay.
Yeah. So Saya is actually like he's big in academia. He's like a associate professor. Last I heard, he was at Dartmouth. He does like Middle Eastern studies. So he actually walked away after that record to learn classical piano. And then, you know, I guess that led him into university life, where he got his doctorate, and he's a faculty member.
Wow. I mean,
yeah,
I guess that's life, man. Shit.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
That's really dope, man. It brings me a lot of joy. I always feel so disconnected from the East Coast hip hop guys. Like, on the West Coast, you know, I'm like closer than Kevin Bacon to a lot of the cats, but on the East Coast guys, I've always just kind of, especially, you know, 20 years past, 25 years probably for a lot of them, it's like, man, I have no idea what, you know, like even C Ray's. Like, I ran into C Ray's at South by Southwest, and he was wearing a blonde wig, and we just rapped on the corner for a while. But I have no idea what a lot of those guys are doing.
C Ray's is in prison.
Yeah,
for
I heard he did
horrific things.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that until you brought it up. But yeah,
yeah.
I won't give a shout out to that. But
no, not at all. Yeah, no.
Yeah, if I could move on, man. And Kicksville, that's a song that Scott Popular,
Yes.
who's not actually on the show, he's just a homie that I do events with out here, and some community organizing shit. He really loved that track, and I gotta say I like it too. But one thing
Yeah.
I noticed is like you give, you shout out like even Master P on that and Dilla.
Mhm.
What was kind of like the idea behind the song, and why wasn't there any shout outs for Yeshua and Saya, so to speak?
Mostly because it didn't fit the rhyme scheme more than anything. But yeah, the idea for the song was, I don't know what I was watching. It might have been like some Norm Macdonald special or something. And he just said, like, let's shake this square world and blast off to Kicksville. And I thought it was a funny, like not a funny line, but just like an interesting way to say, let's go do some cool shit.
Yeah.
So I kind of wrote it down in my pad of like sayings that could be a song title like 2 or 3 years ago. And I was like, let's run with this and see what comes with it. So it's just basically like about, let's do some cool shit. Let's have fun.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's mostly just like some, like just rapping shit, but like, let's have fun doing it. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's how I got from it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if like Kicksville had to do with like kicking it, or if it had to do with like skating. I didn't know if you came from like skateboard culture or anything like that.
I was too uncoordinated to skate, unfortunately. I always wanted to, but I never could.
Word. And
Yeah.
I guess the only other track that I really wanted to address is the one that I felt that we were a little bit most critical about on our review, is the Fuck George Lucas track, which is a very short track. It's like 2 minutes. And I felt like we went off too much on a tangent for that one.
But that's what I want to address as well. So yeah.
I feel like we went off a little bit too much on a tangent about that one. First off, I mean, fuck George Lucas. I agree with you. Like, yeah. But not necessarily for the things that you're saying on there, but definitely for the things you're saying on there. And we leaned in. I didn't rewatch the review because I'm kind of like you with your art. Like once it's done, I edit it and then I just never want to think about it again. Because as much as I like to hear myself talk, I don't like to hear myself talk. And with that, man, like, man, at the end of it, like once I posted, I was like, you know what, man, like I just want to be clear on this because we do have a lot of leftists that follow us. And if once you ring that reactionary bell, all the leftists are going to come out and point middle fingers. And we even had one of the homies on there. One of the homies on there was like, I don't think I'm gonna listen to this. I was like, no, don't.
Yeah, I saw that.
No, it's still a good project. And I think I also messaged him in the DMs too, but we kind of went too far on that. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I think you went with what you took off it. That's cool. Like to me, that's the conversation, right? So the only things that like I wanted to address, like I think it's like a perspective thing, right? Because similar to the other song where, based off of the other indications on the record, you thought it was going one way. Like I thought like the one thing that really stood out where, where I said America's like living in a coup album. Like that actually like builds off of the previous line where I'm like Busta Rhymes was right about the year 2000. America's like living in a coup album. So it's like literally living in a coup album to me. Like, like it's police state, it's police violence, it's state violence, it's disparities. Like it's a fucking fucked up place. Yeah. So like, I meant that literally, not like, oh, like we're having like these online conversations about things. But even though the next line is like lawn signs and stories won't save us. That's like, to me, it's like, if you think like that's what's going to fix this, you couldn't be more wrong, right? Like you see now, like in the aftermath of the George Floyd protests, the only thing that changed is street names, right? That's like they didn't address any of the legal issues that are allowing police to come in and do these things. They didn't address qualified immunity. Like nothing actually changed. So like that shit's all bullshit to me. Like if you really want to change things, you need to get fucking down and dirty.
Yeah, a couple people got rich. I said a couple people got rich. A couple organizers got rich, but shit didn't change. In fact, a lot of things got worse. Yeah.
So like to me, like that's where I think it was the disconnect. Like I actually agree with y'all on that. Like 100%. Like we were in 100% agreement there.
Yeah. Like Boots Riley is one of another one of my past hip hop heroes, and I've actually never had the
Yeah,
opportunity to meet him. But you know, he's a communist, and I
yeah.
really rock with him. And that's kind of why I was like, why would you say it's like a cool album? But then it's like I think the thing that kind of brought it full circle for me to think that it's a little bit too reactionary is at the end you're like, if you want to change the world, you know, raise a kid that's not an asshole. I
Hmm.
didn't
Yeah.
put the line right, but to me that kind of harkened double with the idea of like he's selling revolution, but that's not really revolution. And that idea to like, if you want to change the world, start at your house, is something that it is often aligned with the intellectual dark web guys like your Andrew Tates or your
Hmm.
even more conservatives, lift yourself up by the bootstraps if you want to make the world better. But it's reactionary because it doesn't want to progress towards making things actually better
Hmm.
instead of yeah, but like even I said on review, I agree with that too. Like, don't raise an
Yeah.
asshole either. I and yeah, it was. I think at the time we're getting a little bit too excited and kind of just stuck
Yeah.
it too much to that. When really it's just kind of a fun song about like fuck fuck media trying to tell you what the fuck is really going on in the world. Fuck,
Yeah.
like and
But it's also like fuck demigods, fuck like, like the sort of like the hero or the great man theory of the person
yeah,
that's going to change the world. Because that's where it's like, where I was like, George Lucas tried to sell us on rebellion. Like it's almost like you could talk about the Bible, right? Like anybody could take any perception of the Bible and skew it to whatever they want it to be. I'm not religious in any way. I don't give a fuck about the Bible, but you see it, right? It's a
right.
reality of our world. And same thing with like any political philosophy, like anything people like, to me, the common element of what's fucked up in the world is people,
Oh yeah,
right? Like there's always going to be whatever the sort of economic or political system is, there's always going to be the element of people. Like in a bubble everything works perfect, or in a vacuum and there's no people. So like when I said like the only thing you could really control is like your kid, like raising your kid and your family, like the people around you. So that's more what that is. It's not like ignore everything else,
yeah.
but that's the one concrete thing you can do that you can actually change. And it was also just kind of a hard ass line to end a track with.
It was dope. I mean, like that's
Yeah.
what like what did you say on it as well? Like most people are more bad than good, like Black Star, or half good
half
like Black Star. Like,
half good like black
I
stuff.
know you're not talking about most deaf. You talk about, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, some people are just
Yeah.
not that dope. And yeah, I think in this review that was the one thing that rubbed me the wrong way, because a fair listen to that wouldn't have had me be as critical or go off on a tangent about it, because most of the things you were saying I already agreed with. It was just that
Yeah.
putting two pieces together. Yeah, Jet, who has no formal or even previous experience with your artwork, for him
Yeah.
hearing that, he's only catching certain aspects of it, and
Yeah.
especially when you kind of passively taking the lyrics too, and you're not really trying
Mhm.
to connect everything. Like a lot of that shit is hard to get. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of cats don't know who the fucking coup is. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's like, it's also like, I think as you get older, like it's also part of like all the rebels I know did it just to get laid, God. Like that
yeah,
line, it kind of refers to like, you like, for example, we're talking about C rays, right? Or talking about Quali.
yeah.
Like these are like the people that are supposed to be like, Quali's like supposed to be like the real conscious good. Like he's a leader. He's like, he's winning Grammys with John Legend or whatever it is. Like, he's like, or even Common, right? Common. But meanwhile, like, Jaguar White's like, he's sticking the dick in my face on the tour bus. Right. So like, to me, it's like a lot of it's ego driven when you're young, like, you see that. So I think as I'm skeptical of leadership and power more than anything,
So that,
right? Like I don't trust that. And until that proves otherwise to me, I'm not going to trust it. And, sometimes it does. And then I trust it and I'm like, cool. But like, like I'm not trusting anybody that's part of the establishment. Like I don't give a fuck about, Bernie Sanders. I don't give a fuck about anything because they're the establishment. Like you're not a
you vote
rebel,
for
you're in the
the
establishment.
government gets in. Yeah,
Yeah.
like me, like I told you, my namesake comes from being a 5%er, but I
Hmm.
spiraled out of that by the time I was like 19. By the time I
Yeah.
was 20. So that's 20 years ago. And one of the reasons that pushed me out of that is because a lot of the, the radical, the cats who had radical black politics, but not radical economics, a lot of
Hmm.
them were just using that to kind of be cool and shit. Like they
Yeah.
weren't doing the knowledge, they weren't reading books, they weren't studying, they were just, ended up like Ghostface, like not calling your kid for 10 years and shit. And
Yeah.
and
I mean,
it's
he's a
one of the
piece of
things that
shit,
pushed me
right?
out.
Like, I
Yeah,
love
and
him, but he's a piece of shit.
yeah, big time. Yeah, I love Ghost, but he's embarrassed me and disappointed me more than once. Most of the guys in the
Yeah.
Wu-Tang Clan, to be honest with you, RZA is my
Yeah.
my great hip hop disappointment,
Oof.
um,
Yeah.
but Ghost, I saw him on one of these like reality shows or whatever I was watching with a girlfriend back in the day, and the way that he treats women, I'm just like, bro,
Yeah. I know
disgusting.
that was the moment where it all turned for me. And I was like, he telegraphed it in his lyrics. Like all that was in his lyrics.
Yeah.
But like the way like it was like couples therapy or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was. And it was
Yeah.
like his side chick that he was there with or something, man. Yeah, it was nefarious. It was bad.
Yeah. It was really like it was evil.
Yeah. I still like I do try to, not essentialize people as like it's a good person or it's a bad person. And for what it's worth, I appreciate, even what Bill Cosby did being like, the goated
Mhm.
rapist or whatever. Like what he did is I don't want to disconnect it from who he is as a person, but I definitely have to take those things into consideration. And
Without question. Yeah.
as much as I love Iron Man, I really can't hold him up in the same light anymore after these type of things. And it's a shame because,
Yeah.
even James Brown,
Yeah.
so but word, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I mean, I think it's sorry, go ahead.
no, I think you're no, I can hear you again. It was going out for a second, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those difficult things to walk, right? Like, it's like it makes me look at Wildflower in a crazy different way. Like I used to think of it as like, oh, this person's hurt and it's a breakup song. And like, it's a fucked up breakup song. But now I'm just like, oh no, you really are like fucking like manipulating people,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
in a bad way.
yeah.
But yeah, I hear you on that. It makes it a little more difficult to listen. And I think as you get older, you get that perspective. Like you understand that nobody's perfect and there's gonna be flaws, but there are some flaws that are like, all right, you went too far.
Yeah. I
Like
especially when you guys started the podcast, call out culture was a thing, Me Too movement was kind of a thing, and
yeah.
in a term and kind of an exercise or practice that was going on a lot online. And
Mhm.
I've seen some of, like I Aesop Rock has been one of my favorite MCs since I first heard him. And
Mhm.
he had his Me Too-ish moment
Did
too,
he?
and it's like, yeah, he did the album with Kimya Dawson, who is kind of like the folky.
Okay. Yeah.
He called him out for like using her and using his friendship and I don't know, perhaps a hierarchy of power to do sexual things, and not
Oh,
so pointedly saying you too, but she definitely
yeah.
like put that out to the atmosphere. And a lot of people, I saw some of his fandom want to equate that degree of um, you know, misconsent or whatever you would like to call it to, a Bill Cosby. It was like
Oh,
there was
yeah.
like the single line, like, do one infraction and you're part of the terrible side, and that type of essentializing. I was like, bro, if I was really to look at all the homies that I came up with, and we're drinking, we're getting girls like my
Mhm.
age group, man, like that's what we thought we were supposed to do. We weren't getting them
Yeah.
drunk so they could not give us consent, but it would lubricate the wheels. And I felt like
Yeah.
a lot of times they're right on board for it too. I've never done anything nefarious, but even that type of situation is considered, certain segments of, liberal ideology would consider that like, absolutely terrible. Like throw the whole
Yeah.
person away. Call out the person, throw the whole person away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
There's a
listening to
difference
little
between
bit.
like Aziz Ansari and R. Kelly.
Hell yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he was a
Aziz had a
creepy on a
bad
date.
date.
Yeah,
Aziz had a
exactly.
bad date.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, man. You know, Alaska, I think we've been talking for about an hour now.
Yeah.
Usually I my podcast in Tokyo, the reason it kind of died out a little bit over COVID is
Mhm.
because all of my guests have always been in studio. I just kind
Yeah.
of prefer that energy. But I am kind of happy just getting here to sit here and build with you and kind of delve into deeper into your art, your experiences, and just you being kind enough to share some of your personal life with me. Yeah, man, if ever you want to come and talk about an album or anything like that, I'd love to get you on. We've recently started this thing that we're calling the Not Book Club, which is kind of
Okay.
like an album club where we go back into the past and we listen to an album and we kind of talk about the material conditions of the time and kind of the
Mhm.
ideology and the thoughts that are going on. And we're actually going to be doing Big Just's album Gaffling Whips, which
Okay.
is kind of like I don't know about your relationship with him, but to me that's my favorite piece of work by him. And it's one that's
Mhm.
kind of, it's not available on streaming, and it is kind of at the very tail end of that keep it real, like we might
Yeah.
save hip hop type of era. And I would love if you watch the video that we have coming up on that, and if you have anything to say, I would love if you join in again and talk about it.
I would love to do that. Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Without question, anytime. And
Yeah,
hopefully if I ever find myself in Japan, where are you in Japan?
I'm in Tokyo.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, the wife and I have been talking about trying to get over there. So if it does happen, I will let you know.
Man, sushi's on me. I'm like I said, I'm a cultural ambassador for Ikebukuro, which is Tokyo is like 23 wards, right? Like,
Okay.
and so the biggest stations in the world are Shibuya, Shinjuku, and Ikebukuro. Mine is the third biggest station. I guess
Okay.
geographically, like New York, we would be the Bronx. So
Okay.
I'm very central Tokyo. I'm 8 minutes from all the Shinjuku and Shibuya and shit like that. And
Mhm.
yeah, man, 5 minute walk from the station. Come through, man. Sushi's on me. Tell the
That's what's
wife to
up.
come through. That'll be incredible.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
It'll
Like
be incredible.
whenever I travel, like I usually take a day and I sort of just walk around. Like I go looking for graffiti. Like I want to see what the city has to offer. So like I'm usually like going down alleys and like looking for shit like that. So having a guide
Tokyo,
would be great for that.
Tokyo sucks for graffiti, bro. Like
Oh, really?
all the all the big graph homies, they say that when they come to Tokyo, like Cope was just out here a few weeks
Yeah.
back. We ran into him doing a mural and shit. Was like, oh shit, is that fucking Cope? And it definitely was.
Wow.
And it was me and do you know Neil Armstrong from Fifth Platoon, Queens
I know the name.
turntablist? Yeah,
Probably maybe if I saw him, I would know him. Yeah.
the Filipino cat from Queens, was with Fifth Platoon, which is like the third best turntablist crew at
Mhm.
the time. But he also he's a homie. He's out here. He was the DJ for Barack Obama's inauguration
Oh, wow.
in Jay-Z and shit. But he's dope. But we was out. We just saw Cope posting up, writing graffiti. But Tokyo is a bad graffiti city. I got mad graph homies out here, and we could show you around, but we gotta leave the city a little bit. We gotta go
Okay,
out
that's
towards
cool.
the
I'm
suburbs.
cool to go wherever. Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
mad graph homies out here. Yeah.
Okay,
I
that's
don't
what's
get up
up. Yeah.
anymore. I don't get up anymore
Okay.
because yeah, but yeah, I'm with it. For
That's
sure,
what's
man.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll post this on the channel if you want to like Google share it with me and I'll download it and
I
I'll put
will.
a little
Yeah.
tip in the beginning and crop it a little bit for us. But man, I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
appreciate you, Alaska.
Hey, I
Thank you,
appreciate it
sir.
as well. Oh, can I bring up one more thing real quick?
Please, yeah.
So the title of the record.
Good question. Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
So it's I was enjoying because y'all were having like a very detailed conversation about it. It's basically from a TV show. So it's a show that Dove, like the first time I recorded, Dove was like, yo, have you ever watched the show The Patriot? And I was like, no, I never watched it. Like I thought it was gonna be like some stupid, like, like sort of like military propaganda type shit. He's like, no, check it out. It's dope. It's like a real like sort of like existential exercise.
Hmm.
And a lot of the stuff in this record was taken because it's same thing. Like it was like how everything happened in like 8 weeks. I ripped through the series in like 8 weeks.
Okay.
So a lot of the vocal samples, actually all the vocal samples except for one, are from that show.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and even like the concept of halfway plus one, like that's from the show. The whole like
Okay.
breakfast with Tom, Leslie, and John, that's all from the show.
Okay.
Like it's just a reoccurring theme of like breakfast being this optimistic start. And I was just like, okay, like I want to write a song about that.
Oh.
So it's just like that was the kind of what was going on in the background and like little like words and stuff that like, you know, like I said, I keep like words written down of like phrases I hear, like a lot of like the phrases will like inspire, like start a rhyme, like haversack ruse. Like I heard that in there, like a haversack ruse is essentially a Trojan horse. It's just another way of saying a Trojan horse. So like that's like this haversack ruse shit. It's like the Trojan horse. Like this is a smooth song to like get you in the mood.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Hey, I have one more question. You reminded me. Where are the lyrics at, bro? How come you didn't update the lyrics on like the Bandcamp? I kind of like that now. I feel spoiled to get
I didn't
lyrics.
even know that was a thing.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, because I like it's written. They're dope bars. Like, and you know, a lot of artists, you know, they don't have huge fan bases of you know 15-year-olds are not having their lyrics typed out and put on Genius. And so, like for you, it was like, you know, I would have liked to pull up lyrics and actually discuss specific bars, but I just didn't have, you know, we all busy grown ass men. I didn't have time to go through it like that. But yeah, you should do that.
Yeah.
You should
I'll talk to Dove because he's the one that set it
up. Update your Spotify, update your Wikipedia, and update the lyrics. That would be dope. Because
I'm in the process of updating Spotify.
Yeah.
A lot of it's not on Spotify. It's mostly on my Bandcamp. But I'll send you that. I'll send you a link to that so you can see. Like it goes back to like 2009. Like, and they're all one producer records. So like I don't ever do like I have to find somebody I like working with. So like I did 2 records as a group called the Crack Epidemic after Hangar 18. And those were like kind of reactionary records to that Hangar 18 record. And I took some time off. I did a couple with this dude Lang Vo out of Austin. It's in a group called Words Hurt. I did one called with this dude PJ Katz up in Albany. And then I did like one with Zilla Rocca. I did 2 with Jason Griff. So I'll send you the Bandcamp link.
Yeah, that would be ill. That would be super ill.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you so much for rocking
appreciate
with
you
me
as well.
checking us out and the support. Yeah, we'll be in contact. We'll talk soon.
All right, bro. Have a good one.
Live 1,000 years.
Culture too.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Live 1,000 years. I appreciate
you as well.
Man. Peace.
All right, man. Peace.